guys, welcome to another edition of Texans Unfiltered. We are blessed to be joined by Antonio Cromartie. David, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me today. I'm super excited to talk to you. I see a potential cornerback one.
Can move very well, thus can play man-to-man very well.
I think that he is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes.
He does things that are so amazing, and the competitor in him is just special.
I'm excited, man, and I can't wait to get there. I think it does really fit my skill set.
All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Texans Unfiltered, a Houston football podcast for your Houston Texans. I am young Ari Gold. No, I'm not. I'm James. Forgot that's dead. I am joined by my friend and co-host John Wade, the Garnet Texan. And John, we have an offense.
We do. I mean, that's exciting. That was fun. You look like you're in a stadium. That's kind of different.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually there right now. I'm just sitting down. Wanted to get comfortable. And yeah, some players might join us, might stop by. You guys make sure you tweet out the link, retweet it, let everybody know that Deshaun will be here. And tell your friends.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What's the over-under on how many times we get asked tonight if we're going to sign Le'Veon Bell?
Okay, so we already have 43 in. There's one in. I'm going to say 7.
7. Are you taking the over or the under on 7?
I'm going to take the draw at 7.
The draw at 7? I'll take the over.
Okay, the over on. Okay. So yeah, so for those that don't know, he was released by the Jets about an hour ago. But before we get into that, make sure you guys go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Houston FB Pod. You can follow me on Twitter. I forgot I changed my handle. I believe my Twitter is at Houston FB Pod Guy. You can follow John at John A Wade 3, and you can follow Jordan at Texans_thoughts. He'll be joining us later to do question and answers. You can follow Patrick Storm at Patrick Storm TU, and you can follow Jair at JRL Sports TU on Twitter as well. Make sure you go to our website, TexansUnfiltered.com. I'm working on a piece titled "The Most Important Decision the Texans Have Made or Are Going to Make" regarding the coaching decision and everything that needs to go into it. That should be out later this week. And yeah, make sure you guys go to patreon.com/Texans Unfiltered if you guys want the instant reactions on Sunday. Those are a lot of fun. Have a lot of good times doing that with Jordan and John. This week it was with Patrick, which is great. We have hats. Make sure you guys go to the merch tab on our website. And I think that's everything. So now we can get into.
Ask you something.
What's up?
You know, I've got to change graphics and things like that when you change your Twitter handle. Can you give me a heads up? Like, especially because I don't know if you're joking or if it's serious or what. So now I feel all unprofessional. We'll get to the end credits and your Twitter will be wrong. So I'm sorry.
Is it possible for you to change it while I talk for 10 minutes? No, I'm just kidding. No big deal. Nah, it's no big deal. It is what it is. If they haven't followed me already, then they're probably not going to. All right. So let's do some housekeeping first and foremost. Bmac on the IR. Is this the end of his time here in Houston? Shoulder injury. Are we sure it's for the season though? Has that been? Because remember, the IR is different this year. I haven't seen season ending.
I have not either, but all the media that's closer to the stadium. I mean, granted, they're not inside the stadium like you, but all the media that's closer to him, that I heard that and I saw that repeated several times throughout today, that he's probably played his last snap. So I'm going with the assumption, but I do want to forewarn everybody that is just an assumption. We don't know. It hasn't been officially released.
Yeah, maybe Patrick can drop it in the comments. But I think he might be out for the season. But either way, all right. So yeah, I mean, Bernard McKinney.
Oh, he put it in caps that he's out for the year.
Okay. Bernard McKinney out for the year, off of a game where Tyrell Adams looked like a player for us. It was against the Jaguars. I want everybody to understand tonight the conversation that we're going to have while we should celebrate a Texans win. As you guys know, I am ultra critical of this team and everything that they do. So you have to keep in mind that this win, while great, while needed, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So while everybody is probably high-fiving, they jumped out of their seat. Keep in mind that we played a terrible defense that was lacking a pass rush superstar in Josh Allen. They were lacking their best corner and also like their third best corner in DJ Hayden. They were missing Miles Jack. So this was not a full Jaguars team. And as soon as I say that, I see that it drops from like 60 to 45.
Are you scaring everybody away, dude?
That's great. That's great. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, look, we got to keep it real, right? I mean, we're about to play the Tennessee Titans. There was a lot of good to take out of this game. Don't get me wrong. The offense looked a lot better. Looked like Deshaun was in more control. Lots of good things going on, but I just want to make sure that while we recap this game, we discuss the fact that it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're down to 35 now.
They're like, we're going to go watch the Astros.
They're like, all right.
James is just going to badmouth everything. We're just going to.
Insane. My God, we were 0-4. What'd you guys expect?
Dude, I should have started off like you're right, and those are valid points. The Jaguars are horrible. I'm pretty sure they didn't even have a safety at the end of the game. They came into the game already starting their fourth safety, and then both of them got hurt. So I don't even know who was playing safety. It might have been you back there, just letting people run by because you would have done the same thing as they did. However, you got to keep in mind that this is the NFL, and even replacement level teams, even crappy teams, can sometimes surprise you. So it always should be an accomplishment when you go out there and you take care of business and you do it in a convincing way, especially when the Texans really got their act together in the second half. If they had played the entire second half, that game would have been just an absolute blowout. It would have been a smoke show. It would have been great. But always try and keep it in mind, keep it balanced. They could have gone out there and completely, continued to play like they did in the first half and eked it out. And then if we had won and we'd only won by like 3 points or because of the 2 missed field goals, then we could sit here and we could really pout. But this one, I think we can take it not so much of a grain of salt, but, it's something that we can at least be happy about and look at it as something to build on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's definitely the path we need to take is looking at it. While we should celebrate the win, we just need to make sure that we look at it from the right perspective. And the right perspective is that it is a game to build on. It was a new coaching, so there's still time for them to get even better. But at this time, we need to still understand that it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, yeah, I mean, look, it was great. I'll go to the show notes so I don't get yelled at as usual, and we will go through the game recap because John yells at me a lot. So when you guys aren't paying attention, you guys see John as like this soft-spoken, educated football guy, kind of takes it easy, lets James be who James is. But once the camera's off, he turns into a diva.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep. Just out there demanding. I'm demanding that it's my voice on Instagram. I'm demanding these things.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. No, Jordan will be here for question and answers. He had some stuff he had to take care of this weekend. Prayers to Jordan for some of the things that happened with his hedgehog over the weekend. Losing a pet is never fun. So obviously we're here for that. So he'll be here later for sure. So all right. So let's get into this. Let's start with, I think, the number one thing that people want to talk about is offensive play calling. John, what did you see from the offense this last week that made you feel good about where this team is going?
So essentially they flipped everything. If you take a look at Deshaun's stats, how he ended the game, they are almost identical to how they've been the past 4 weeks. Yet if I had asked anybody, what out of these past, 5 weeks was Deshaun's best game? If I ask you that today, what is the first thing you're going to say?
Deshaun's best game?
This year.
This one?
Right. But if you look at just the stats, purely the stats, it's almost identical to the previous 4.
Oh, is it really? I haven't even looked.
Real. Like, it's exact same pass attempts, same completion percentage. He actually had more interceptions than he typically does. Okay. So what was different? When you hear that, what was different? There was something obviously different.
For me, you want me to answer that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was play calling. I mean, play calling was completely different. The team looked more engaged. People were wide open. Randall Cobb was pretty much open the entire game. I watched the all 22 today. They got Brandin Cooks going in space, which is where he needs to go. Lots of RPO, lots of play action, outside runs. It's funny how that works when you sprinkle those in. A couple rollouts. Basically, the things that Deshaun Watson should be doing in general.
Specifically, though, even all those things are correct, but it was specifically the order. They were using the pass to set up the passing game. They were using the pass to set up the running game. So David Johnson, of course, had a huge game. As a team, we were over 120 yards rushing. 97 were to Johnson or David Johnson himself. And all of this was because they got with the modern NFL and realized that you don't run to set things up. You can run a play action pass without running the ball at all, and it's still effective because it's just getting people to bite. So all they literally did was flip the script, especially in the second half. They would pass on earlier downs, and they would go for easier completions, and they really relied on Cobb and Cooks to move the ball. Everything else, though, it's crazy how that. Like, the numbers don't really change that much, but the entire game, the feel of the game, the look of Deshaun, the look of our running game, all changed just based on the play calling.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the biggest thing I took away outside of that was just the fact that Deshaun looked to be more in control. He was audibling, looked like he had more control of the offense. He was really, he really looked as if he had the offense at his fingertips. He was able to do what he wanted to do. And I think that we saw that and that's why he excelled. And it's not something we've seen. I mean, we've seen him audible here and there, right? And he'll check into the right play based on the reads, but going to the line and making a full audible, we don't see a lot of. And it's those things that we need. We need Deshaun to be able to go out, read the defense, have an understanding on where he should go, what his guys should run, what route they should run, what their hots are, things of that nature. And that's what we saw. And when we see that, he did exactly what you would expect him to do. He looked so comfortable on Sunday, even in the first half when he struggled. He just looked, I don't know, he just looked engaged, man. He looked so happy. Like, this is the first game where I've seen him bouncing around with his headphones pre-game. You could just tell it was a different type of vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, somebody put in chat, is Deshaun inaccurate? He's at a 70% completion percentage. He's on pace to finish the year probably right 68, 69%. So he's right there. That is where you want to be in the NFL. Anything above 65 in the NFL, you're a good quarterback. If you're 65, you're average. If you're below 65, you shouldn't be in the NFL. And Deshaun's good. Like, he just is. And we had commented about previous games where they weren't making it easy for him. Nothing was ever easy. This was the first game where it looked easy and things flowed and things clicked. And ultimately, my point with all this is when coaches start talking about numbers, when they start talking about, we have to run for 100 yards to win, it amazes me that it goes over their heads when you look at a game like this. Or, you could pull it 6 weeks from now and say, hey, we rushed it for over 100 yards. We have to rush for under 100 yards to win. Our rushing yards came in junk time. They came after we had already put the game away and we controlled the game. And then we were running to kill the clock. That's why we got over 100 yards. It's that stupid narrative that just needs to die. And let Deshaun do Deshaun things, because this is what happens. A game like this. And again, if you pull out the box score, it's not going to blow you away. But I don't know. He still threw for 359 yards. That's a good game. Because he usually hovers right between 275 and 300. So those were the better routes run by the receivers. Like, it was just a better called game.
It was a better called game. And those interceptions really, I think that Fuller ball could have been thrown a little bit better, more on the outside, to where if the only person that could get it would be Fuller, not a safety coming over the top. But the batted ball. There's just nothing you could really do. That's going to happen. I think that's the first time he's had a 2-interception game in I think it was 14 games or something like that. So, we know he's not Mr. Turnover, in the sense of when you think of most gunslingers, right? They usually lead the league in interceptions and also touchdowns, like Jameis Winston.
Well,
I think Brett Favre did it almost.
His rookie year was hyper aggressive, and there were more interceptions,
Which is fine.
That was one of the things that Bill O'Brien came in and he said, we're going to cut down on the interceptions. We're going to do more of death by 1,000 paper cuts. And with this game, it seemed a little bit like, you know what, he's going to throw. And he's going to throw aggressively. And sometimes things happen. Like the second interception that bounces off Fuller's hands. I really don't think that was a bad decision. It was poor execution, but it wasn't a bad decision. Fuller could have made a play on that ball. Maybe he could have let him a little outside a little bit more, but I don't fault that. Things like that happen. And I would rather Deshaun go out there trying to push those throws because you know what? He's going to make them work more often than not.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I also think that there's going to be more added to this offense. You have to remember and keep in mind, this is really a short week to implement a whole new game plan, a whole new offense. They just went with things that they've done in the past and added some new wrinkles to it. It wasn't necessarily Deshaun's rookie year play calling this last week. There were parts of it, but it wasn't like a full game. And I don't expect them to go back to 2017, but I do expect them to start to do some of the things that they did do that year to get Deshaun going again. I think the biggest key is we need to see them doing it in a early and often. It can't be something that we're setting up the run early on and we find ourselves in a deficit. The reason why this run defense was able to play so well is because they played with a lead.
Yeah,
it's a big difference. It's a lot easier to stop the run when you're playing with a lead. I know we're not talking about the defense right now, but those things, that's complementary football. That's even though Bill O'Brien's not here anymore, you're even hearing the players still and Rack and Tim Kelly talk about it still in their press conferences. It's because it's needed. So when the offense can go out there and drop 30, and that puts the opposing offense in a different situation, and that's the biggest thing that we need to understand. So this team still has to get going early. They still need to be able to sustain drives, and they did. They sustained drives. I think they had 0 3-and-outs. Fantastic, but you have to put points on the board early. You can't go to halftime with 10 points. You got to go to halftime with 14, 18, something of that nature. And then you need to be able to match that in the second half. Great.
I hope they remember it the second half going forward, because this team was built to be aggressive. And then they got in their own way. And hopefully the reason for that is gone, because you can't play conservative football with this team. That roster is not built in that way. This roster is built to be hyper aggressive, and they have to do it.
Well, here's the thing. So this is a really good point, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. I guess we'll get into the run game now. David is fine. He didn't look great, but we haven't been using him the right way until now. That's a big point. I think also if you go on Twitter and you just watch the cherry picked clips that people are posting, they're choosing the clips where he decides to not make the right cut or doesn't make a cut. But with those 2 or 3 clips that people are showing of David Johnson not cutting properly, you're going to see 6 to 8 more plays where there is literally nowhere for him to go. Specifically in the first half, there were a lot of plays where the run lanes were blocked. They were clogged. There was nowhere for him to go. And, it's hard when you're taking snap from where he's taking snap on the right side of Deshaun to bounce that back outside, especially when the run is not designed to go that way. So, he definitely needs to get better. I think the biggest issue I have with David right now is just the first contact, not being able to move past the first contact. He's going down on first contact every single time. Specifically, that screen could have went for more. But also, Deshaun missed him in the end zone. He's missed him in the end. He missed him on that sluggo in week 2 or week 1. Either way, it was a beautiful route. Basically, made the cornerback just slip and fall out of his shoes. So. I agree that David has to be better, not pandering or, defending him. He has to be better. I'm sure he knows that. But we also need to see him used more effectively, and he has to have a run. Like, I know run blocking was a great grade, but like, I would like to know what they go into, how that grade is made, because is it sustaining blocks in the run game, or is it creating holes in the run game? Like that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. So for the ESPN win, my understanding is it's a helmet on pads, or so as long as they're hitting their guy, they're essentially counting it as a win for the offensive line. They're not letting their guy by. And here's the thing about David. I'm a little worried about him because he's not breaking tackles, but at the same time, he's not losing yards. He's just not really gaining them. So I think this is 2 weeks in a row that he hasn't had a negative run. Is this true?
Yeah.
I need to double check it. But it's either 2 weeks in a row or 2 out of 3 weeks he hasn't had a negative run. He's just not creating. However, this time they did run him off tackle a couple more times. I think they ended up having 5 off tackle runs, and he's closer to like Tevin Coleman when Tevin Coleman was really good a couple of years back for Atlanta. They have to run off tackle. They have good speed. They pretty much run straight. They don't break tackles, and they are great receivers. Yep. And that's what David Johnson is right now. However, what concerns me is Romeo Crennel was talking about him. Oh, he's the big back. Versus,
he is a big back.
Well, yeah, but using him versus Duke Johnson,
right,
where he was like, sometimes you just need a bigger back. And to me, that just sounds kind of concerning, because don't you want the efficient back? And I don't know. To me, granted, the way Crennel said it, he's like, some games it may be a Duke game, some games it may be a David game, but I think that there should be more of at least an even split, because good things do happen when Duke touches the ball, and for him to only get 4 touches last game, that's not the best.
But let me ask you this: do you think that this is a good chance that maybe Duke's still coming back from injury, and they just have him to ensure that they can use him if needed, or they get in a bind, or they want to do their, I think they only ran the double running back set twice, I think, this game. I just wonder if that plays a part into why, because I'm in the camp of, I want to see Duke and David split carries. I don't want a 22-23 and a 5 or a 6. I want like a 14-16. David can still have the more carries, but I want to see them split, especially because even though Duke isn't known as a runner to a lot of people, and that's fine, but he has a good cut, and he's able to gain yardage. So, I wouldn't be opposed to using Duke in those same situations. Split the carries. That's all you need to do.
Well, according to Pro Football Focus, like, Duke Johnson is the better between the tackles runner, and David Johnson is the better off tackle runner. You would never know this based on usage, but if you see how they actually produce, you can see it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think with David, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to see it a little bit more. Are they going to get more creative in the run? Things of that nature. But the offensive line also needs to do a better job, and the scheme needs to be better for him to be able to produce too. I mean, that really is a big part. I mean, there really are. I promise you guys, go watch. There's a ton of run plays where there's just nowhere for him to go. There was even one.
I'm sorry. I was going to shout out Marco Keene. He said that the ESPN thing is that they hold a block for 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So,
which tells you nothing. It just tells you they hit. What's the difference between that and pass protection? They hold them for 3 seconds. Like, how does that really doesn't impact the run blocking? In my opinion, you could block a guy for 2.5, but are you creating holes? Like, are you pushing them outside and creating a hole, or are you just in the same spot where they connect with you and you're keeping them there?
All right. Our pass rush win rate metric tells us how often a pass rusher is able to beat his block within 2.5. The pass block win rate is within 2.5. For a run stop win rate, a defender must earn a win by doing any of the following: beating his blocker so he's in better position to stop the runner, disrupting the pocket, or running lane. And it does all it says for the offense is vice versa. Prevent them from doing so.
Real quick to answer this guy's, he says, no, we can't beat the Titans. I understand that they just beat the Bills, but if you compare the Titans defense to the Jags defense, total yards allowed, 32 for the Jags, 30th for the Titans. Total rushing yards allowed, 32nd for the Titans, 21 for the Jags. Total passing yards, 32nd for the Jags, 22 for the Titans. Sacks per pass attempt, 31st for the Jags, 28th for the Titans. Third down efficiency, 23rd for the Jags, 31st for the Titans. And red zone efficiency, 9th for the Jags, 31st for the Titans. So you're going up against a team who's worse defensively than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I don't think people realize how bad the Titans defense is. I know they played the Bills, but I'm just telling you.
Well, it looks like they got some of those extra practices in based on how they handled the Bills. Granted, here's the thing. If we get out to an early lead, we're going to be that team. If we get out to an early lead, we can play with anybody. If we don't go out there and score quickly, I'm scared. Because, again, like you said just a couple of minutes ago, and we'll talk about a little bit more of the defense, when we're ahead, our defense looks a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. All right, so let's talk about the offensive line real quick. They looked so much better this week. They looked like what we expected them to look like. There were still issues, right? Fulton still got blown up a couple times. There were some things that Titus had a great game. Tunsil had an amazing game too. Senio actually had a really good game. Martin, he looked a little sluggish, but he had a good game based on what we've seen so far this season. I think that there's a real reason to be optimistic about this offensive line. So I just knew those weren't in the notes, so I just wanted to talk about the offensive line, and this was their best game of the season so far. But you played the Jaguars, whose only pass rush was Caleb on chasing on. Like outside of that, there's really nobody else to really worry about. But yeah, so I don't know. Anything on the offensive line, John?
Honestly, the reason that they got left out was because I didn't know how to grade or talk about them this week because of the team that they played. The Jaguars were missing their best pass rusher, their best linebacker. And I guess I'll say this. The offensive line actually performed this week how we expected them to perform at the beginning of the year. They looked good, and it was needed. And I think this was the biggest pocket that Deshaun had all season. He actually this was his highest time to throw game. Granted, it was only by 1/10 of a second more, but he had more time to throw and more time to operate. So, they did good. Next week will be a better test, like everything, but this is a good get-right game for them.
Yeah, and I think, for the offense, if that's what, right now to wrap up the offense, what I take away from this game is that there are adjustments being made. The game plan is evolving and adapting to defenses. They came out in the second half and made adjustments to be able to take advantage and apply pressure to the Jaguars. Deshaun looked more comfortable. The wide receivers were able to get separation, and Deshaun was able to get everybody involved. This is also a week where they missed, in my opinion, tight end number 1 and Jordan Akins, I think Deshaun missed in the first half. He's been his security blanket all year, and he's gone to him early. And then this week he didn't have him, and you wonder if that's why he adjusted. Maybe they thought that they can go include Darren Fells in the game plan in the way that they thought they could with Jordan Akins. But Jordan Akins is a better tight end than Darren Fells, and I think that the lack of Jordan on the field made a massive impact on Deshaun's approach to the first half. I think him being back this week will be a big boost for this offense. All right.
Granted, I think it allowed them to kind of find something as we start to talk about the receivers. I firmly believe that the offense works best if you run through Cobb and through Cooks because of their skill sets. Fuller should be used closer to like a Deshaun Jackson type, a couple of receptions, close to 100 yards and a touchdown, but he only needs 3 or 4 receptions to do that. Whereas Cobb, him catching the ball over the middle really left an impression on me this week because I think that allows Deshaun to gain so much confidence. Like Cobb would make some of these catches and get absolutely rocked immediately, but they would continue to move the chains. And this is why those slot receivers always have so many dropped balls because they get lit up when they catch it. But for him to go out there and do that, I think that just builds a comfort level. And I think that's what Deshaun was looking for with Akins. And Akins did nothing to dispel that. And he has done nothing wrong other than not get targeted enough. But Cobb was just open like he was always open. For weeks, we've been complaining about him being open. But he was actually getting targeting. And then the same thing with Cooks. Cooks is probably the most versatile receiver we have on the roster. Like Cooks is really, really good. I don't think people quite realize how good he is because he's always had a great quarterback throwing to him. But yeah, they were lining him up everywhere. And this was closer to what we were expected. I mean, you take away that long reception at the end, the 36-yard one, and he's still over 130 yards. Like he had a game.
Yeah, no, he did. And he just looked more involved, right? Like, to me, that's really the biggest thing. I know that a lot of people have talked about a lack of separation through the last, 4 weeks and things of that nature. The separation wasn't much different this week at times, but it was more of the play calling and scheming him open and putting him in a position to succeed. Like on that, I think on the throw where basically the first pass of the game on offense for the Texans, that 35-yard pass, he was in press man. He faked inside, broke out, and he was just wide open. You're not going to be that's going to be very hard for any corner to stop. You have two guys who can do that. Really, you have three with Kenny. So, it's just, he needs to build confidence in the scheme, build confidence, connect with Deshaun, which they did that. So the chemistry should be there and continue to build. And then, when you add the fact that you have Will Fuller opposite and you have Jordan Akins and all these other things, right? Like there's a lot of good things that can happen. Brandin needs to be involved, but I wouldn't expect Brandin to be the guy next week. I would expect it to potentially be like, that's just the way this offense is going to look. It's going to be very Patriots-esque if you play fantasy football. Outside of Julian Edelman on the Patriots, there is nobody else that you need to start on this offense.
So wait, who are you saying should start?
Nobody. You shouldn't start anybody.
So who's our Julian Edelman? Who's our safety blanket?
I mean, Randall Cobb is the guy, right? I mean, he's always open. Deshaun looks for him in the middle of the field. He had a really good game. He's always open.
Yes, I mean, he really is. And
he's always open.
And that goes back to my original point about maybe it was a good thing that Akins was out this week, so Deshaun adjusted and started looking for Cobb because Cobb is always open.
Yeah, always. But I think if I was to start anybody on this team, I would probably start Akins. To answer your question. Yeah, but Randall Cobb looked great. I mean, he really did. That middle of the field for Deshaun is where he wants to go. Yeah. And you might have seen an increase in targets with Randall because Jordan Akins was out. Because usually Jordan will be eating in the middle, either that or on the out routes, which is also where we were hitting Randall. But I think Randall is a very important piece. He's a consistent performing tight end. Slot wide receiver. And Deshaun has lacked that since he's been here. Even if you remember with Bruce Ellington, when Bruce would play, Bruce would get fed. But because he was always hurt, we can never actually build the chemistry with Bruce. And yet Deshaun still looked his way whenever he was on the field. So Randall Cobb is a very important piece, and he plays a very important role in this offense. And it's going to be interesting to see if that continues because, he is always open.
Yeah. Cobb, it looks like he ran almost all of his routes from the slot. Cooks ran everything, slot, inside, outside. It looks like he lined up at tight end. And Fuller stayed predominantly on the outside.
Yeah.
And that worked.
Yeah. All right. So Will Fuller, had a touchdown. It was a great play. Great heads-up play on that touchdown. Wasn't targeted often, but when targeted, he made his receptions outside of that. That interception on the outside. But, Will Fuller, like I said, he's going to be there. this offense is going to be a give and go offense. It's going to be this guy. It's going to be this guy. Next week, it's going to be this guy. It's going to be very hard to predict, the production from these individuals on the team specifically. But,
I
Will
would say
Fuller is
that
a
pop-up
threat.
slide that Will Fuller pulled off was one of the coolest touchdowns ever.
I would agree. It was
That
pretty
was
neat.
cool.
Just the fact that he knew, to continue to play.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Is there anything else on the wide
Just
receivers?
a little bit on Fells, 2 receptions, 1 TD.
Yeah,
that was
a big one, though.
coverage, but hey, Deshaun saw him, fed him, and he had all day to run.
Yep.
There was
Did he
another
surprise
play
anybody on that?
Do what?
Did he surprise you on that he was able to actually get into the end zone?
A little bit. I thought somebody was going to run up from behind him, but
Yeah, I thought that the entire time the play was going on.
I can tell you that one pass to Farrell Brown, where Farrell Brown got taken out by his shoelaces. If Akins was in, that's a touchdown.
Yeah, no, yeah, with Akins it would have been a touchdown a lot faster. A lot faster. But yeah.
But
all right.
I can also tell why they actually signed Farrell. Farrell was a pretty good blocker. He did a better job blocking than Fells did. And then I guess we're on to the defense, unless you got something else to add.
No, that's it. No, I think it's actually that's it for me on the offense.
We got 3 sacks on Mr. Minshew.
Yeah, 3 sacks. Whitney Merciless. People are he heard some of the slander. He another sack. He's the team leader at 3. Jacob Martin, another sack for him as well. But Whitney, I want to say Whitney's putting it together, but we've seen this from Whitney before, and we talked about it all off season. Whitney shows up when JJ's on the field. You should give each sack from Whitney to JJ in the stat column.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Whitney is. I've said it before, and I'm gonna just restate it one more time. Whitney gets sacks because he's always in the right place at the right time. Like, he plays fundamentally sound. Like, he gets those cleanups, the cleanup sacks. There is definitely a role for that. That's definitely a skill. But he's no longer able to generate pressure on his own. Like, he has to have somebody else causing the disruption for him to get numbers. And right now, Hall, Watt, and Martin are actually causing a lot of disruption. Like, they may not necessarily be reflected in the stat lines because, defense isn't always reflected in stat lines. But
right.
Merciless is the type of player that compete on that. And that is, like I said, definitely there's a role and purpose for that. That's an above average player. But I don't know about paying somebody $54 million to be that sort of player.
I mean, we've talked about it before, but that contract was basically like paying him for past production. I don't think they gave him that contract thinking that he was going to outperform what he has done. And if that's the case, that's just a terrible way to run a franchise. That's a terrible way to run a business in general. If you're paying an employee for what they've done, yet you don't believe that they can replicate what they've done to this point, don't do it. If you own a business, listen to me, don't do it. You're wasting money. It's just, I think Whitney can get to, 8, 9 sacks. I don't expect him to go back to, what was it, 2014 or 15 when he had, I think, 10.5. But, he's a productive player at times. I don't know. I mean, what can you expect from Whitney? I'd love to say you can expect this to continue, and you might be able to. But he just hasn't shown that he is that dominant pass rusher on the outside.
Yeah. Again, we questioned this contract when it was signed. Martin should definitely be getting snaps over Merciless. And I mean, it's kind of tough to say because I do like Merciless. I love him as a person. Like, he seems like just the best guy, but It honestly, we should have Martin, and hopefully Grenard can actually turn into a player if he's ever healthy, and that should actually be our outside. Granted, right now, Scarlett just needs to get off the field. Even this week, Scarlett still needs to get off the field. Why is he out there?
I mean, I have no freaking clue, dude. I mean, he does nothing well. I mean, he got juked like 10 times on one play by Gardner Minshew. I was sitting there screaming at the TV. I had no idea what the hell was going on. Brennan Scarlett looked like if you put freaking Chris Farley out there and he was supposed to tackle Minshew. I mean, that's literally what he looked like. He got put on skates 9 different times. It was out of this freaking world how he looked. Jacob Martin should be getting all of Brendan Scarlett snaps. There's no reason. I don't care if you're dropping Scarlett in coverage. You've dropped Jacob in this coverage as well. Jacob's just as good against the run. He's a better pass rusher. Jacob Martin has to take those snaps. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why Brendan Scarlett is on the field. And that's the issue.
The only thing that Martin cannot do that Scarlett can is if you move Martin inside on some of those more exotic zone blitzes, he can't. He can't. He has to be on the outside. And Scarlett, you can at least move him inside to at least get a little bit of a push. He'll at least, the offensive lineman will at least look at him, whereas Martin on the inside, they just kind of laugh. So yeah, that's it. And that's almost in my mind, that's almost like an addiction to them trying to run these zone blitz schemes more often than it's really necessary. Just let Martin go out there and let him do Martin things, because he doesn't need to be schemed up to create pressure.
Yeah, and like at the same time, like if Jacob Martin gets burned on a run, like if you go look at the film, Brendan Scarlett gets burned on runs too. So like at this point, what is the purpose of playing him over Jacob Martin? We need to know what we get.
The other thing about Martin is he gets burned on a run. He has the speed to catch back up.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like if you slow down, like for instance, this week against Derrick Henry, if your linebackers are able to somewhat slow, if Jacob Martin misses Derrick Henry in the open field and the linebackers slow him down, Jacob Martin's going to be able to run back and catch him to finish off the tackle. Scarlett can't even do that. Like, just play him on special teams. That's it. He's great on special teams. That doesn't mean that he's great on defense.
Well,
making your core
is fine if he's not getting that many snaps. Like, he just doesn't need that many. If he's there as like a spot every now and then, that's fine. But for him to get at starter level snaps, he's getting over 50% of the snaps at defensive or at outside linebacker. That's too much.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we need to see more Jacob Martin. We need to see it soon. It's getting a little bit out of hand. We're getting a lot of questions about Lonnie Johnson. You guys, we'll get to you with that. Tyrell Adams, what do we think of him? I think he's a faster version of Bmac, not as physical, but still able to play the run extremely well. He's very disciplined. If you guys go to Jordan's Twitter, you'll see him do a Tyrell Adams film breakdown. There's lots to like about Tyrell Adams, and we saw a little bit of it last year. So he's just building on it. He's got speed. He has great discipline. He sticks to his assignment, and he has the speed to be able to recover when biting on like play actions and things of that nature. I don't know what he looks like in zone coverage, but I would say that it's hard to say he's an upgrade over Bmac because we're going up against the Titans. So I could say he's an upgrade over Bmac for the season, and you guys would thrash me next week because Derrick Henry could easily just run him over. And Derrick Henry does that to everybody. I mean, he did it to Edmonds earlier in the Bills game, and Edmonds is a great linebacker. So, but Tyrell Adams came in. He did what he's supposed to do on a week where there was no Bernard McKinney. He needed to step up. He looked really good. He led the team in tackles. And I think that there's a reason to be optimistic about the season on defense with him instead of Bmac, which sucks because I've always been a big Bmac, supporter. But at this point in time with him on IR, it's good to see that there's somebody else. We need to start to see Dylan Cole a little bit more too sprinkled in. But I feel good about Tyrell Adams for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Tyrell Adams is kind of in between both Dylan Cole and Bernard McKinney. He's not as good of a run defender as Bmac, but he's better at Cole at the run. He's not as good at the pass as Cole, but he's better than Bmac at the pass. So hopefully he'll be good. He'll be fine. He showed great ability last year. He just in spots. Now he's going to get a nice long look, and this is also his contract year. So hopefully he goes out and he just balls out.
Yeah. All right. Tyrell Adams, Zach Cunningham. Yeah, Zach Cunningham. This is probably his best game of the season. He looked a lot better tackling. The fundamentals of tackling seemed to everything that Romeo preached this week. It looked like it. It stuck. It stuck with Zach during practice this week. Those are the types of games that we expect Zach Cunningham to have. And I mean, I don't know what else to say about him. I mean, he's great when he's on top of it. All right, defensive line. Charles Omenihu, PJ Hall, both had really good games. PJ Hall is becoming more of a disruptor. But what'd you see from the defensive line, John?
No, they're better set to go up against passers, which is strange. They played a little bit more. They played with a little bit more discipline than they have in the past, so that was something to be excited about. Again, Omenihu, good role player. PJ Hall, good disruptor. We're still missing that one piece, but we would be so screwed if the Raiders didn't release PJ Hall. Like, he's been absolutely vital. JJ is playing more disciplined than he probably ever has, but he's still pushing the pocket. He's still he still creates a smaller pocket. He's still creating pressure. He's not finishing right now. I mean, 2 sacks for the year, and they came in bunches. So we'll see. But like you said earlier, Merciless doesn't have those sacks without him.
Yeah, I mean, JJ plays an intricate role in this defense, kind of frees everybody up. He hasn't the sacks haven't been there, the stats haven't been there, but he's definitely making an impact. His presence is definitely being felt. It's just not in a way that most Texans fans are used to seeing from him, right? You're used to seeing, the sacks. By this time, in usual years, he'd already have about 4, 5, 6 sacks.
Well, he's not been lining up. He hasn't been lining up at the 11 tech. He hasn't been.
They've been moving him around.
Way outside. Like, he's stick in the middle. He's doing what they're asking him to do.
Yeah, but he's also he did play predominantly on the outside. And my biggest complaint with JJ, who I'll never criticize again, but the one thing I'd like to see him clean up is just being able to maintain when rushing the passer. He tends to go outside a little too much, and his spin move, he really lacks the spin move. It's all bull rush. It's all power moves from JJ. You don't see there's no finesse in his game. So if he can't beat you off the snap, there's a good chance that he's not going to get to you unless you're just holding on to the ball too long.
Which is kind of crazy how often he got held this past game, though.
Oh, he did get held a lot.
I thought that they were going to hurt him again, the way that they were bending his back. As a guy that has had, after having that back surgery, having those back injuries, the way that he bent backwards because of a couple of those holds, dude, that scared me.
Yeah. All right, let's actually bring in Jordan here as we finish up the defensive side, because we're going to talk about Lonnie Johnson's play at safety. First and foremost, sir, I'm sorry to hear about your hedgehog. I know, I'm sure you're, nothing we could say, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been tough now, but trying to power through. The dog definitely helped.
Do, dude. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can talk football, get your mind off it a little bit. So, so we're on to the secondary, and there's lots of talk about Lonnie Johnson. I specifically watched the offense on the All 22 this morning. I didn't watch much of the defense. Tell me what you saw from Lonnie at safety.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you in the same boat. I focused mainly on the offense, and I was looking at the front seven and the run defense with the All 22. I haven't really looked at the secondary yet, but just on the couple of plays that I did notice, Lonnie was tackling pretty well, which I like. He's earlier in the season when he was starting at safety, he was having some issues just reading the plays in front of him, just like a split second behind In this game, I noticed a couple plays where once he sees it, he reads it, and boom, he's going and he's breaking on the ball. And so I think we're just going to continue to see that progress throughout the season because it seems like they are sticking him at safety, no moving back and forth to cornerback, which I like. If you're going to put him at safety, keep him there, let him be comfortable and learn it. So it was a solid game by Lonnie. The main thing with our safeties is like basically just don't make mistakes. If we're not noticing you out on the field, if we're not calling your name and bitching at you, that's a good thing. And there was no complaining with Lonnie on Sunday. So a good game by him.
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't see much. I didn't see any issues from Lonnie. He always keeps his eyes back there. It's kind of what you want to see from a safety. It's kind of why I've been somewhat of an advocate for him to play safety. I still would like to see him play corner, but I think that ship has sailed at this point. But yeah, I think Lonnie has potential. You got to remember, new position, new year. He hasn't had any experience, and it's going to take him some time to really get going. But he's always been a pretty good tackler, and he's aggressive, which is what you look for in a safety. Could come back to bite him in the ass, but that's still what you look for. That's why we wanted Earl Thomas, right? Earl Thomas was a risk taker. He was able to go out and make plays, and Lonnie has shown that he could potentially do the same thing. Justin Reed, 6 tackles, but really some big ones. There was a couple on third down. Justin Reed, Jordan, is it fair to say that we should just let go of Justin playing single high and dropping back into coverage? He's his brother.
He does it occasionally here and there. And here's my thing about Jay Reed. I love the dude. I love the player. I love the person. He's someone who can do anything you ask of him on the football field. He can do it for sure. He's not going to be a liability, but he's also not going to be elite in any one thing. And we're seeing this year, they want him in the box. They want him helping on the run. They want him covering tight ends. And they're going to put Eric Murray and now even Lonnie Johnson back there as a single high, the deep coverage guy. And so I don't know if the ship has sailed yet, especially with a new regime coming in. We likely going to have a new defensive coordinator, new scheme, and they could want to move Jay Reed back there. So we don't know for sure yet. But for the rest of the season with Rack and what Weaver wants to do, it seems like the case. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Jordan, Tybo, on kind of your thoughts on the game. Give us your, before we get into question and answers, what was your takeaways? How should you feel? How should they feel optimistically about this team moving forward?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's reasons for optimism. I think the biggest thing to take away is that this team, and all the players are tweeting about it, but they're having fun again. They want to play for Rack. They want to play for the Texans organization and for us fans. And that's the biggest thing, because we could tell from week 1, 2, 3, 4, it was going downhill, the morale of the team. Yeah. And so it's turned around. We're back. I like what I saw from Tim Kelly. There were definitely some differences in play calling, and it's only one game so far, and it is against the Jaguars. So we got to pump the brakes a little bit. We're not going to say we're going 12-4 or whatever, but there's definitely reason for optimism and things to look forward to. So it was great.
Yeah, and that's how I opened the show. It's just like kind of pump the brakes, because it was the Jags. They were missing all sorts of key players on defense. Let's see what they do this week against the Titans. But it was a great warm-up game. It was a great get-right game. And, on a short week with the decisions of, letting Bill O'Brien go, you can't think, you have to think they weren't able to implement a ton of new things. It looked like they went back to some of the things they did in 2017, but it didn't look like there was a lot of new things that they've never done before. And so I would think that this week they'll get a little bit more creative and we'll start to see some different things. John, anything else on this game?
No, just like I said earlier, we'll really know this coming Sunday, depending on how we show up against the Titans, how excited we should be. But sometimes you need just a good, solid get-right game, and that's what this was. And yeah, sometimes you need a little practice. Sometimes you need things to be a little easier so you can get a little bit of confidence. Sometimes you need things to just kind of be there and fall into place, like the Jacksonville's defense, being a shell of itself. So the offense could get on the right page and try things and see what would work, and they were able to do that. So I'm actually excited going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jordan, let's get to questions from the listeners.
All right. So you can ask me questions on Twitter. First one comes from his @ used to be @FireBillO'Brien, but now that that's gone, his @ is now @He's Gone Finally. Appreciate you, brother. Always with it. All right. So he says, thoughts on Le'Veon Bell. And why does Max Sharping keep getting benched? He's the only young, cheap talent we have, and Kelman is taking all the snaps. So first thing, Le'Veon Bell, I don't know if you guys have talked about it yet, but James, what are your thoughts on him?
I just, sure, if he signs a vet minimum, sure, it makes a ton of sense. I get that we want another running back to pair with Duke and David, but I just don't know if we're going to get anything that we haven't already gotten from Duke or David. To be honest with you, like I haven't seen any good film from Le'Veon in 2 years. So I mean, if it happens, great. It's a risk worth taking. He has $6 million of salary left for this year. If he wants to sign with us, great, let's do it. But if not, it's not going to be something I'm really thinking about. Like if I see a Adam Schefter notification tomorrow that we signed him, cool. I'd be optimistic, but I wouldn't say, send the full court press. Don't treat him like he's LeBron and you need to recruit him in the off season. That's just not it for me. And then what was the first part of it?
So then the second part was, we get this question every week, but basically what is going on with Max Sharping? Why is he being benched in favor of Clemente?
I think for me, this is just my opinion, but I think it's more of consistency and there's a sense of urgency on the team. If they lose another game, it's going to be, you're talking about we already have an uphill climb. It's 10 times 10 at that point. Is it more, let's get, a veteran guy in here to, to play a little bit better and be more consistent. Max is the future, and we saw it on film, and you and I both know, we talked about it all offseason. We love Max. He had a great season last year, but it didn't look like he added any power to his game this year, and he looks the same. He didn't add any power anywhere in his game, and that's why he's struggling, is because he didn't do that.
Yeah, you kind of answered exactly how I would have for both of those questions. Bell, we're not screaming his name just yet. He's a shell of himself of who he was with the Steelers. And what Jets fans will tell you is that he hasn't been put in a position to succeed. But if you look at our situation, we're not exactly putting David Johnson into a position to succeed as well. So I don't think that Bell is going to be a major upgrade over David Johnson. I would be down with him on the team, but again, like you said, he's not LeBron. And then with Sharping, the only way I can kind of justify it and see where the coaches are coming from is that you reward a veteran for playing well and practice and working hard, whatever, but you're also kind of punishing the rookie for that rookie to sophomore jump, not making an improvement, looking like the same player and not working on maybe what the coaching staff told you to work on. That's the only way I can justify it, because I just don't see the point in killing a young player's confidence like that, especially someone who's shown promise already. But moving on, get to you.
Did we lose Jordan?
I think we did lose Jordan. He'll be back. College kid. That's what happens.
Is he still in the middle of the woods in Canada?
I'm back.
No, there he is. There he is.
I don't know. My Wi-Fi is just horrible. But basically, Romeo Cornell Time asks, should we expect Lonnie Johnson to get the same amount of snaps going forward? I believe he was around 80-something% this game. What do you think, John?
I'm sorry. You said Lonnie Johnson?
Yes.
Maybe. I would guess so. I would assume at this point with them, Weaver and Rack are in charge of the defense for the rest of the year, and it looks like he's letting Weaver run the show. And it must have been Weaver that sees something with Lonnie as the safety. And, Lonnie, I've talked about it when we drafted him. I talked about it in this draft recap this past year. Lonnie was one of those players that if he failed at being a corner, he was going to turn into a very good safety. And so maybe they've just decided that he's going to be a very good safety. And I think that's all right. We do operate better as a defense when we have two players in the back, when we have two really good safeties. It gets confusing if I say two strong safeties, but two guys that can do things interchangeably. And him and Jay Reed can. And granted, we really haven't seen it yet, but I think that's kind of on purpose. I think that they're trying to I think defenses are trying to scheme up so Lonnie is single high and you get Reed in coverage, because Reed's not quite as strong in coverage, but I think that'll probably continue, because I think that Johnson actually still does it. If you consider him as a safety in coverage, he's fantastic. If you consider him as a corner in coverage, he needs some work. So, it works for me.
Yeah. I think the question, the only thing that could kind of eat into Lonnie snaps are when AJ Moore comes back, who's going to start at safety, and then when and if Garyon Conley comes back this season. If they put him outside, they put Vernon Hargreaves back in the nickel, then that moves Eric Murray, who's now in the nickel, back to safety possibly. Who knows? So those are the only things I could see hurting Lonnie snaps. But like you said, like he's shown promise. I hope they keep him there because he's definitely, he should be part of the future. All right, next question from Dion Williams. He says, how can we hand the Titans their first loss this Sunday, James? Did you guys get into this before? I think you did. No,
we haven't gotten into it yet. This is actually perfect. Well, you're going to have to play good run defense, and you're going to have to let them dink and dunk their way to the end zone if you're going to want to have a chance of slowing them down. You can't let AJ Brown get going. I think Bradley Roby is quietly having the best season for a defensive player on this team. I don't think people realize how good Bradley Roby has been this season. And it's because you don't hear his name a lot, which is a sign of a corner shutting down his guy. So yeah, I mean, slow down the run. Get ahead early, make them abandon the run. It's one of the biggest reasons why we had success against the run this last week is because when you have a score, you're forcing them to change it and evolve their game plan, and they can't go back to the run as often as they would like. That's our weakness. Everybody knows it. But if you get up, they're going to have to start to throw the ball a little bit more, especially in the second half. So I would like to see us come out quick, come out fast, score. This needs to be one of those games where first drive isn't just a 4-play drive. It's a drive where we go down and score and put points on the board, and it can't be something we let up.
Absolutely. And I think we have a good chance of doing that this week. I don't know what happened with the Bills offense today. I didn't watch the game, but the Titans defense is horrendous. I talked about it in the offseason, them losing their defensive coordinator, Dean Pease, and Mike Vrabel taking over. That's a bad move for them. And they're in the bottom of basically every defensive metric you can look at. There's not enough talent on that roster to make up for their lack of scheme right now. And I think, like you said, we need to get off to a hot start. I always advocate for us to receive the ball at half. But this could be one of those few games where you want the ball first. You want to come out hot, guns blazing, put points up on the board. And I think we got the ability to do that as long as we keep up with what we saw versus the Jags. All right, next one from @RealSpartan21. He says, how do you think Tyrell Adams will do the rest of the season? So with Bernard McKinney unfortunately being out, Tyrell Adams, he stepped in. He played real well. He had 13 total tackles, 7 solo. What do you think about his performance, John? Your mic's muted, by the way.
Did we lose John?
Oh, there we go. I think that he actually fits the modern NFL game and modern NFL scheme a little bit better than Bmac. We've talked about at length that 15 years ago, Bmac, probably perennial All-Pro, like a guy that you're really talking a lot higher about than he is here, where he's like an every other year All-Pro or Pro Bowler. I'm sorry, not All-Pro. But with Tyrell Adams, he's not going to be as good of a run stopper. He's not as good as Cole is in coverage, but he's a nice mixture of the two. He's a little bit more flexible, and he can stay with running backs a little bit better than Bmac can. So I'm not happy that Bmac is hurt, because especially this week, because he was Derrick Henry's kryptonite. Like, Derrick Henry never had a good game against Bmac. So I think that our defense may slightly improve just because of the flexibility that Tyrell Adams gives, but this week is probably going to suck.
Yeah, I think he showed a decent ability to kind of beat blocks and play that Mike role to replace Bmac, and that's something we need to see big time next week, because everything stems on stopping Derrick Henry, like we've talked about, and it'll be the big test. One game sample size. I like what we saw against the Jags, but again, it's only one game, so we'll see how he does the rest of the season.
Make sure you guys go to manscaped.com, use promo code Texans for 20% off your first order. In case you guys are wondering what happens when you use Manscaped, if you guys actually take
whoa, James, we're on video now. We're on video. This isn't like the old days where
Oh, okay. Well, if you guys want to use the Lawnmower 3.0 to take care of those man genitals to make sure that they're soft and pretty and nice and shiny for everybody that wants to have their go at your schlong, then make sure you guys use promo code Texans on manscaped.com. All right, go ahead, Jordan.
That's perfect. That's it for me for the Q&A. We all done. Can't really follow that
I
up.
think the chat is actually rooting for you to get an OnlyFans at this point, James.
Hey, let's go. No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. I just thought it'd be funny. All right. So I guess let's give our predictions for this Titans game. Look, I understand that the Bills, I think they had an off day. I am not going to say that these are the Bills. I'm not going to say that. I haven't heard the word pee-pee in like the last 25 years. Like, not even my kids ever said that. All right, so it was never. That's just a funny word for a grown man to use. Anyways, I think they had an off night. I don't. This Titans defense is not very good. I can care less what they did against the Bills. I don't expect that to be the same outcome. They've been practicing for the Bills for 14 days. They should be prepared. I don't know how that's not a talking point once their game last week was moved. So they knew who their opponent was. The Bills, on the other hand, had no idea who their opponent was. They were preparing for their next Sunday game, Saturday or Sunday? Sunday, I think. And I think the Titans defense is trash. I don't expect them to come out. I don't expect Malcolm Butler to pick off Deshaun Watson twice. I don't see their corners being able to hang with our wide receivers. And I think that this will be a very similar game to what we saw from Deshaun his rookie year when he played the Titans and dropped, I think it was 54 on the Titans. I'm not saying that they'll drop 54, but I do think that Deshaun's going to come out, and I think his offense is going to be ready to roll. That's just my thought. I think the Texans beat the Titans. Did we lose Jordan?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
My prediction. Oh man. I think I'm gonna say that we're gonna take the L this week, just because our run defense has not shown the ability yet to stop really anything other than the Jaguars. And the Titans are a different monster. I think particularly what they do well is attack the edge. And right now our edge setting ability is just not there whatsoever. Like you said, though, if we do get up to a big lead and force them to pass, that is definitely the formula. I don't think we've seen enough for me to be completely confident in predicting that to happen yet. But I think it'll definitely be a close game, probably like a 3-point loss or something.
John?
I'm going to say that we're going to lose as well. The Titans just come out. They looked, for a team that was supposedly all sick, they looked a lot fresher against Buffalo. And granted, there is something with Buffalo just absolutely getting jerked around by the NFL. Like, it was unfair what happened to them. And, with us, we at least know which team we're playing. The Titans are coming on a short week, but Derrick Henry currently scares me. A.J. Brown, he looked good. He looks healthy again. He scares me. So I'm not overly optimistic. However, if we come out hot, we come out and score a couple in the first quarter, then I reserve the right to change my prediction, because that's it. We're going to probably know within the first quarter. If Deshaun's out there and Deshaun is doing Deshaun things, we're good. If not, it's going to suck. And I don't want to listen to my dad. So I might have to just turn my phone off.
All right. Real quick, let's talk about Gary and Conley. I know the last we heard was Bill O'Brien said that he's far, far away. Do we think that there's a chance that with the new regime that Gary and Conley gets going sooner rather than later? Or do we think that he really is far, far away? Because this defense could use Gary. Jordan, I always talk about him, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what adding Gary and Conley can do for this defense. I don't think people realize what having another competent number 2 cornerback can do for this defense.
Yeah, so first of all, I do think he's still pretty far away. I think if he was anywhere near being close, I think Bill O'Brien would have rushed him to get back to playing, because he was under pressure for his job. So I think his injury is legit, and I don't think he's going to be here in the next even 2 or 3, 4 weeks. But what he does add to the defense is legit cornerback 1. And we talked all offseason about how great he is, how he's the best cornerback on the team. And I'm super happy for Bradley Roby balling out right now. But in my opinion, Gareon Conley is still a better cornerback than him. And having two lockdown, because now Roby's playing at a lockdown level, two lockdown cornerbacks on the outside, that does so much for this team. And the only reason why Vernon Hargreaves isn't even getting more exposed than he already is because teams have just been running it down our throat. They don't need to pass it on us right now. They can run it. If we ever get to the point where our run defense is stronger, forces them into more passing situations, you'll see Vernon Hargreaves get burnt left and right. But we can avoid that entirely if Gareon Conley returns, and that will improve our already statistically good pass defense a whole lot.
Yep, no, agreed. All right, guys, make sure you guys go to patreon.com/Texans Unfiltered if you guys want live Sunday reactions from Jordan, myself, and John. Make sure you guys go to TexansUnfiltered.com. Lots of good stuff on there. My piece should be up by the end of the week, talking about the most important decision that this franchise is going to have to make over the next 2 to 3 months. And make sure you guys follow us and hit that subscribe button, like button on YouTube, and you can follow the podcast on any podcast platform. With that being said, I am out. John is out. Jordan is out. We will catch you guys next week.